Think of all the iconic monsters in media. Frankenstein's monster, King Kong, White Monster. Okay, maybe not that last one, but still, think about what those monsters represented. After all good film and TV monsters represent a primal part of our little monkey brains. You know, the part of our brain that is still scared of the dark, even though we know there's nothing there. That part of our brain that's in charge of basic survival. That part of our brain that looks at a random hole in the wall and goes, hey, what would happen if I put my... Okay, you get my point. My favorite quote about monsters in film comes from one of the GOATs of monster movies, Guillermo del Toro.
Monsters in movies are us. Always us, one way or another. Monsters are us, the dangerous parts of us.
This leads me to the big question of the video. What makes a good movie monster? Disclaimer, all of this is my personal opinion, but if you disagree, well, you're wrong. Sorry. Moving on. Just kidding. Kinda, a little bit. All monsters aren't created equal, right? That would be insane. That'd be like putting Alien in the same category as Sharknado. So to answer this question, let's take a look at and goof on some terrible movie monsters and compare them with some awesome movie monsters. Now be warned, one of these movie monsters is a pretty controversial take, so you're gonna wanna stick around for that. All right, let's kick things off with... Creativity is the hallmark of a great monster. No one cares for another Dracula with a red cape and a goofy accent. To me, no monster is as creatively void than Sharktopus. Okay, we are setting the bar super low with this one. Now, hear me out. I know that Sharktopus is a cult classic, but I don't think it's a cult classic because of how good the monster is. Well, I mean, not only is the movie ass, I mean, so ass that it's kind of good, but the movie monster design is complete ass. I mean, look at this. Not only is the CGI complete dookie, but the design is not harmonious at all. They literally stuck a shark's head onto an octopus's body. I mean, really? You can do better than that. Come on, guys. Look, don't get me wrong, it's perfectly okay to draw inspiration from the natural world if it is done well. Now think something like all the various adaptations of classic creatures like werewolves that are, you know, based off wolves. Now, where Sharktopus fails is that it doesn't bring anything creative to the table. It doesn't bring a creative spin on the animal, or in this case, animals that it's based on. I mean, to reuse the example of the classic werewolf monster, they have a spin on it, right? It's not just a big wolf, it's a human who transforms into a wolf under a full moon. And this actually adds so much more complexity and story opportunities to the monster. Now we're beginning to see more to this monster, right? All of a sudden it has a personality, a weakness, strengths. Overall, W monster, especially when you put it up against fucking Sharktopus, which is essentially a mindless creature that is an exemplary example of the lazy trope of the experiment gone wrong. Okay, now let's take a break from one of the worst movie monsters I could think of, and let's move on to an absolutely goated movie monster. But before we move on, how are we all doing today? Has everyone taken their morning dookie yet? Subscribed yet?
No?
Well, you know what to do. Anyways, let's talk about my movie monster GOAT, Godzilla. Now, on the surface, Godzilla seems like a pretty basic, big, bad monster, but there is so much more to it. Godzilla first appeared on screen in 1954 after the fallout of the end of the Second World War. This was an especially significant time for the Japanese film industry. This was a very important film for the Japanese as they bore a particularly nasty scar from the conflict, you know, being the first and, God willing, only victim of nuclear detonations on a civilian population. After the events of World War II, the Japanese people had to rebuild, move on, and rationalize the unbelievable carnage left by the atomic bombs. And one of the ways that they processed this grief was through the monster known as Godzilla. Take a look at the film Godzilla Minus One, for instance. This film is absolutely fantastic. It's a story that has solid character beats and puts this larger-than-life monster in a grounded human world, and I think that's what Godzilla is all about. This film is a simple nuclear allegory that goes against the stereotype of Godzilla movies, and not just that, just kaiju, big bad monster movies in general. It takes them from being about mindless destruction like maybe the American version was, and it truly brings the essence of what Godzilla is all about. It was a way to rationalize, you know, horrific destruction and make a story about, ultimately, about people and how they react to it. There is a lot of reasons to love this kaiju as well. The epic fire laser breath is pretty cool. Its cultural significance and the sheer mass monster status of the thing. However, I think the real reason why Godzilla is just a cut above the rest of the movie monsters, and certainly you know, a lot of the movie monsters that I'm going to talk about today, is because of its cultural icon status and what it represents. Godzilla is a symbol of Japanese pop culture, representing resilience and the ability to overcome adversity. Overall, W monster. You can't go wrong with Godzilla. Alrighty, we've taken a look at a bad movie monster and a good movie monster, but what about a mid movie monster? Now, this is a controversial take, but okay, King Kong is mid. Okay, I've said it. All right, you've heard from me, right? I know. But JB, King Kong is the OG Titan in movies. How can it be mid? After all, he was the inspiration for Godzilla. Well, some people say that. And, you know, and I just, like, spent the last however long glazing Godzilla. I mean, what gives? Well, if you think about it, that's kind of all it has going for it. Beyond King Kong's, you know, undeniably revolutionary and iconic debut in 1933, it's been pretty rough for the monster, only getting meaningful expansion in the recent, you know, King Kong movies, right? Kong Skull Island, Godzilla vs. Kong, those films. And even then, to me, King Kong doesn't really have the same appeal as it once did. I mean, after all, we've had nearly 100 years of monster movies since then, and in that time we've seen tons of iconic monsters in media. We've had slasher films, the artistic flair of Del Toro's monsters, the golden age of horror and sci-fi from the 70s to 90s. I mean, come on, and so much more. And all these things considered, the big ape doesn't stand as tall as the Titan ought to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, King Kong is one of the greats, but pretty mid, in my opinion. Now, all this is to say that if I were to boil down the three categories to find my favorite monster, right, I think a great movie monster has to have three things. Has to tick these three boxes. Has to tick creativity, style, and meaning. Creativity in the sense of its backstory. Is it just, you know, a reskin of something we've already seen before or something out of nature? And style as well, you know, is the actual monster cool? Does it look scary? Does it do what it needs to do? And the last thing is, I think, arguably the most important one, which is the meaning of the monster. All my favorite monsters in media all have a meaning outside of itself. Think about the xenomorph from Alien, what that represents, you know, the great unknown, the thrill of exploring outer space, right? Each monster movie for that matter is extremely primal. I feel like all the best movie monsters have some underlying meaning to it and something that they represent deep down. One thing is undeniable. There will always be iconic monsters in film and TV. We're gonna get some good ones, and we're gonna get some bad ones, and some in between. Probably most of them will fall in between those categories. I'm just letting you know how to spot a great movie monster and a trash one, or at least how I kind of view it. Anyway, guys, I hope you had a bit of fun with this video, and please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you learned something new or if you found some enjoyment out of my video. Also, if you think Godzilla is amazing or if he's trash, let me know in the comments. If you think King Kong is amazing and not as mid as I claim to be, then go for it. Leave the comments to share. If you notice I've missed your favorite monster or anything like that, please do share as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.